Hello, everyone, and welcome to this week's edition of Labor Live at 12:05. I'm your host, Alex Jorgensen, the Communications Director here at the Alaska AFL-CIO, and we have a very special, message today. Usually we focus on the legislature. They're just approaching their 15th week. Wow, this year is going by so quick, and so much has happened this week in the legislature, but there's a more pressing event happening today that we really wanted to make sure we took a little bit of a deep dive into, and that is May Day. You might not have heard of May Day. Maybe you're used to celebrating Labor Day, but today is May Day, May 1st, and there's a lot of events happening across the street, or not across the street, but across the state. And without further ado, I see no better guest to talk about May Day and what's going on across Alaska than our very own political director, Kim Hayes. Kim, welcome to the program.
Thank you, Alex. Happy to be here. Happy to enjoy celebrating and demonstrating on May Day.
Absolutely. It's a very happy day with maybe a little bit of a darker background, right? But, you know, in the United States, like I alluded to before, we're really used to celebrating workers in September around Labor Day. Maybe you take a long weekend, do a little bit of a barbecue, but May Day, we're a long ways away from September. So what is May Day and how is it really related to workers?
Absolutely. Great question. So May Day, I think, like you said, not everybody understands what May Day is across the globe. When we hear May Day, we think distress call, which isn't far off from the origins of May Day.
Right.
Originally, May Day was a date set by what was the AFL-CIO back in the day. It was just a federation of labor. They got together and said, back in 1884, they said on May 1st, 1886, we are going to have a general worker strike for an 8-hour day. You can only imagine what working conditions were like in the 1880s, right? 8-hour day was probably something what they felt would be unattainable in those conditions. 340,000 workers across the country at that time went on strike, starting May 1st.
Wow.
Right.
That's a lot.
A lot of people. Even
That's
today,
huge.
that would be a lot of people, right? So starting on May 1st is when that general strike started. It quickly got very violent and very bloody. Protests turned violent. Police attacked workers demonstrating. The demonstrators also got violent, right? This was very violent times in general. You might know this if you took history class in college, or you learned about it in high school, or you've done your own research. The Haymarket Affair of 1886, the Haymarket Massacre. Basically, by May 3rd, May 4th, things were very violent, and a bomb exploded in the crowd. And to this day, there is not consensus about, was it a protester throwing a bomb at the police? Did somebody else plant a bomb to make the protesters look bad? What happened? But people died. People went to jail. And so in the next couple of years, news spread about this happening in Chicago, and internationally, starting in 1889, May 1st was declared International Workers' Day. And it was Labor Day. It wasn't called Labor Day, but it was Workers' Day, even in the US at that time, as a remembrance of the blood that was shed for workers' rights. But you don't celebrate it anymore, right? We haven't celebrated May 1st.
Yeah, I was about to say, like, growing up, we didn't celebrate workers on May 1st. It was always Labor Day. So what was the shift that why has the United States seemed to kind of be maybe the only one out celebrating workers on a totally different time frame than the rest of the world?
Well, the key word here is communism. And we all know that there was a period of time, Cold War era-esque era, where a lot of labor people were accused of being communists. Some of them were communists, of course, but because of that association, President Eisenhower declared Labor Day as the first Monday in September, separating American workers from the global movement as well. Not just saying we're not going to celebrate this because the International Workers' Day has kind of joined forces with communism, and some of that is accurate, but it was also a move to isolate American workers from the global movement for workers' rights. So it had a twofold effect. And so after the Eisenhower era, Labor Day was the first Monday in September. The rest of the world, besides Canada is also celebrating workers in September. They celebrate International Workers' Day still on May 1st, traditionally with bonfires and celebrations, really hyper-focused on workers. And we moved to Labor Day in September. So there's been this split during the Cold War era.
Now, that was really interesting. You just mentioned there was kind of like that twofold rationale, right? You had maybe this like very public rationale of, we can't celebrate Workers' Day on May 1st because it's too associated with communism, and communism is bad, and we're a capitalist society. So there's like that aspect, but in reality, it had this kind of other effect where, whoa, if these workers in the United States somehow connect in solidarity with workers across the globe, they really might be too powerful. So we have to quash that before it can even begin. Is that kind of what you're saying?
That is accurate. And I think maybe you and I both understand this now working the labor movement, but we have Labor Day in September, but most people view it as a long weekend. I don't know if many people are thinking about the rights that were secured over the last 100 years when they're barbecuing. And so that's also been a thing. We call it Labor Day. Nobody's really calling it Workers' Day, and we just kind of take the weekend. Right. I know you and I and people in our movement, we tend to remember those folks, but it has really also been kind of commercialized into the barbecue weekend and not and not the celebration of workers. But that seems to be changing.
Interesting. Well, thanks for providing that history. But I will say this year, it seems to be a little bit different. I do seem to be seeing a lot more information about May Day events happening all across the United States for kind of maybe somewhat of the first time. So like, what's kind of happening in our country right now that's really causing this resurgence of the celebration of May Day and its kind of original origins?
Sure. The National AFL-CIO put out their press release today about May Day. An injury to one is an injury to all. That's we're using that messaging now, but that's messaging from, that's the original message of the labor movement, is that when one worker is, it's an injury to the whole movement. We're seeing workers uniting around May Day once again, because there's been a blatant attack from the administration on workers, ending collective bargaining for federal workers, dismantling the National Labor Relations Board, dismantling the Department of Education. We know an educated society is important to the labor movement. We are seeing deportations and detentions of union members, attacking universities, defunding Medicaid, billionaires getting access to the government. Sounds a lot like robber barons of the 19th century, doesn't it? It's kind of that history itself. And so we're in a moment where all these rights that we have secured by blood and by law, they're being systematically revoked. And so we're going back to the roots of solidarity, global solidarity, finding that again, learning about it again, and joining hands again on May 1st to say, not just May Day because it's International Workers' Day, but this is a May Day call. This is a distress call. We need help, and we need everybody, not just the labor movement, but everybody to join together to fight back on these attacks on working people.
Absolutely. So I know, events happening all across the country, but like what's happening here in Alaska to commemorate this really important holiday?
Yeah, sure. So as Alex, you just said, there are rallies across the country. It feels like in every city. And there are a lot of national organizations and local grassroots organizations holding rallies. And those have been happening, seems daily. But May Day specifically, in Alaska, there are events in most of our communities. There are big rallies going to be held in Anchorage, Juneau, Fairbanks. You name the city, it seems like they're putting together a rally. Here in Anchorage, where we are, Park Strip from 5 to 7 tonight, we're having a May Day rally. The theme is United We Stand. It is a celebration of working people. It's a celebration of Alaskans coming together. And we are coming together to tell our congressional delegation, hey, we need you to stand up for Alaskans. We need you to stand up for people on Medicaid. We need you to stand up for the working people of Alaska. So it's both a celebration, but also a reminder of the attacks that are occurring to Alaska. So we're coming together to do that. It's not just the labor movement, as you saw from that flyer. There are other organizations who are concerned about what's happening in our state and across our country who are coming to stand with us. Here in Fairbanks at Veterans Memorial Park from 5 to 7, they're joining together as well. They're going to be feeding you in Fairbanks. Fairbanks always likes to really dig in. They're going to have a chili feed. So you don't want to be hungry in protesting, right? You want to be well fed. So we're happy to see that. Juneau, they're going to be on the Capitol steps. I think if you live in a community, there's likely a rally. I say you can Google it because May Day events have been put all over the internet. Here's a map. You can find a rally in your location. Gustavus, Talkeetna, the Mat-Su. So please look and find something if you're interested in joining together today with other folks to celebrate May Day, whatever issue you have with what's going on in the country, or if you just want to stand in solidarity with people across the state who are under attack.
And for everyone online, we're going to put this link in the comments. So feel free to look for it there. It has all the addresses and locations of those same rallies. So we love rallies, rallies are awesome, but obviously there's probably some people that maybe they had plans tonight. They didn't know May Day was coming up. We can't blame you. This is kind of a new thing for us to really get into all across the country and here in Alaska. But what are some ways people can get involved in this broader movement of standing up for working families without maybe attending tonight's rallies across the state?
Sure, you can celebrate May Day at home, and we would encourage you to use your voice to call your congressional delegation. So that would be Senator Lisa Murkowski, Senator Dan Sullivan, Congressman Nick Begich. This is a really easy way to do that, and we can make sure you get this information. But we're asking them to stand up for workers, whatever that may mean to you. That means funding Medicaid, because a lot of working people rely on Medicaid. If that means restoring the National Labor Relations Board, if that means restoring federal bargaining rights to our federal workers, whatever that issue is, you can give a call today and tell them, hey, it's May Day. I'm standing with the folks who are rallying across the country, and please stand up for workers. So this is one of the options. You can also just send an email. You can look up your congressperson's name and send them an email and say, these are the things I care about today on May Day. The more we can do this, and it's a big movement, the more we move the needle.
Perfect. Well, Kim, I just want to say thank you so much for coming on the program. That was a really enlightening history for me about the history of May Day in our country and how this day is really rooted in labor and the hard-fought battles that organized labor has won over the years. And it's really a reminder that those fights weren't often just protests like we maybe kind of think of today. Like, there were literal fights where the state-sanctioned, police officers were committing acts of violence against organized labor. And that really history is really not that too far in the past when we think about, the grand scheme of time. So I hope all of us today can really take definitely a moment, if you can't attend a rally, to really reflect on this day and everything that working people in this country have done to advance the 8-hour workday, to advance paid sick leave, to advance things like OSHA, safety on the job, because at the end of the day, we're all just workers working to provide for our communities. And if we can't do that safely, and if we're getting killed, or if we're not getting the benefits and the pay that we're rightfully owed, that's just not right. So again, Kim, thank you so much for coming on the program to share a lot about this really important holiday.
Thank you, Alex. And I hope to see folks across the state at the different rallies. And I hope folks can call their congressional delegation tonight and let them know what you care about.
Thanks so much, Kim. And folks, thanks so much for listening at home. And again, today's just May 1st, but we're going to be organizing around working families like we have been for the last 100 years, for the next 100 years. So if you can't get involved today, that's totally okay. You're going to have so many more opportunities upcoming this summer and in the years to come to stand up for Alaska's working families. But for everyone, that's today's episode of Labor Live at 12:05. Thank you so much for tuning in. And don't forget to tune in next week, where we're going to be talking about education. Very important subject.